When working with your studio ribbers, you want to look at the operation table until you get used to what you have to do. But first of all, what I do is I take my yarn, I drop the ribber one notch on the left side there, and I have the yarn between the beds, and then I push it back up. And then when you look, and I'm going to be doing a 1x1 rib here. When you look at the operation table, you have the card slot to the circle, the SL knob back to S. You have the side levers on the knitter forward to the Roman numeral 2. You have the Russell levers, you have these to the circle, the Russell levers to Roman numeral 2, the cam to stockinette, tension dial to 0, that's over there though. And then this little thing here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but that goes to the circle. When you put it to the P, that's for pile knitting. Then on the ribber carriage, you have your Russell levers up to, and these are sideways now, but Roman numeral 2. You have these levers, which would be similar to the side levers, to 1, and tension dial to 0. This bottom piece here on the right to the arrow, I think that's the pick part, I forget right now. You have your racking indicator on H5, and then the side levers, you have 2 little levers on them. This is for the standard gauge, the bulky doesn't have this. But the second little lever has a blue dot on it, and you just push that up. And then it tells you to move the carriage back and forth. Well, I only need to do it once. And I see that the needle's knitted pretty good. So now I'm going to take the yarn and just put it into the yarn slot there. And I just have a clip on it. The manual tells you to tie it off to the ribber clamp. Okay, so then the next thing is you have your needles out, you knit across. Now it does show the full needle rib, but no matter what rib you're doing, so you just take one line at a time, but no matter what rib you're doing, you're going to have the needle set up for it. So now I'm going to knit across to the right, did my little zigzag row. And I'm doing 100 stitches so that I use the smaller ribber comb. And actually I should probably zoom in so you could see how the teeth go on this. So first you need to take the wire out of the comb, and then I put my thumb, if I can get this in, I put my thumb on that middle hole there so I could line that up with 0 on the bed. But because this is the just enough, I could see that the both end prongs go on the outside of the work. As long as it goes in between the V's of the zigzag cast on, then you're going to drop it down and then hang 1 or 2 or 3 barrel weights. I'm going to try 2, 1 on each end. So now I need to take this left front lever, put it to 0, put both tension dials up to 1, and I am going to knit across to the left. And what this did was it knitted on the knitter needles only. The next one's going to knit on the ribber stitches only. And this is called that 2 or 3 row circular cast on. I do like it on the standard machine. The mid gauge and bulky I'm not crazy about, but anyways, it's really up to you if you want to do it the way the manual tells you or not. So now for the next row I need to put my knitter cam to slip. I knit across. Now you would keep it like this if you were to do tubular knitting, going in a circle. But because I want to do rib, this is where I would normally put the carriage back to normal by doing just those 2 circular rows, then go to the actual rib. But just to follow along with the operation table, The cam says to put the cam back to stockinette, knit to the left. That's on the knitter stitches only again. Now it tells me to put that left lever on the ribber back to 1. Put both tension dowels to 2. And just knit back and forth. So now it's going to do the zigzag, the rib, 1 by 1 rib stitch. Now I did have another yarn on here just prior to this, and it was, I think, a little bit too thick for the tension dowel 2. This is working out a lot better. If you find that your stitches are not knitting properly on the ends, you could take your 7 wire, and what I do is I put it on the low barrel weight on that. Then I go between the beds and just hang it on the end. That's going to help it. The other thing that will help is this little edge clip. It's got 3 prongs on it. Again, I would, if I have to, drop the bed by 1 notch, push this up behind the knitter stitches so it's right there on the edge, hang the barrel weight on. But I'm going to try just these 7 wires, as that's probably all that I need. And I forgot to put my counter on, but that's all right because, so what, I did 2 or 3 rows already. I'm going to work a rib hat. Of course, you could do this full needle rib if you want, and this yarn probably could work it out. But I'm just going to be doing the 1 by 1 rib, so all I have to do is just knit back and forth, keeping an eye on the end needles. If that 7 wire doesn't work it well, I will hang those other things on, and maybe even with the larger barrel weights, which this one here came with this ribber. This is the older SRP 20. I do have the SRP 60, I think, in the other room. And the 50 also comes with these new barrel weights. But it doesn't matter. It's still going to hook on. They're both the same weight. I think I read someplace this is 1 pound. And they are heavy. Now I don't have a pattern for this, so I'm just going to knit until I feel that everything looks good. I'm going to be feeling underneath here until I start seeing the ribber comb come down. But you got to remember, with 2 or 3 barrel weights on there, it's pulling the work down. So when you pull those weights off, the work's going to go up. The yarn's going to pull itself back in together. So if you may think that it's actually this tall, it's probably going to be this tall. So you want to make sure you have enough of this. And being a rib hat, this is going to fit many different people because it's going to stretch itself out. Maybe you could even go to full needle rib at one point, which, well, of course I'm not going to do it now, but if I was to just take the empty needles in between these needles, but I'm probably going to get an eyelet row as well, and I don't want to do that. But it's really up to you. So let me knit. I'll see how many rows I knit until I feel that the hat is tall enough. And then I'm going to be doing a decrease. So I have 111 rows, and I want to do a decrease. Instead of taking 1 stitch on the knitter and moving it to the next, which is actually 2 stitches away, I am just going to take the ribber stitches and move them to the knitter. Now, I can't find my double-eyed needle for this machine, but luckily I do have 2 of these that I could use to transfer 4 stitches at a time. And I better have my reading glasses on for this. So all I'm going to do is take the first 4 stitches off of the needles. Then I'm going to take the other tool and slide it underneath the prongs of the first hole so that it grabs those stitches. And then I am going to put them on the knitter needles. And it looks like that one there didn't get it, but I was able to grab it. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. You may want to drop your ribbon one notch, but be careful because as you see, this is where the loop is, but it is still on the needle. And this is actually 7 prongs, but I have it set up for every other needle. I could set this up for a 2x2, but basically for this one here, just take those stitches off, slide the other tool underneath, go over to the next needles and put them on. And if you drop a stitch, you may be able to grab it. If not, you may be able to take your latch tool. Now here there's only 2 stitches. But you can take your latch tool to grab it or the stitch below. I'm so used to reaching on the bottom for this to drop the ribbon down. Now I should be able to use my connecting arm on this to knit 2 or 3 rows, but to be on the safe side, I am going to put my sinker plate on because I have had some machines. It was more the Brother machines that did it to me. And I'm going to knit 3, maybe 4 rows because this is tiny stitches. Then I'm going to cut the yarn. What I'll do is I'll go 3 lengths of the bed. Then I'll thread. Now this is where that double-eyed needle will come in handy, but I'm going to have to get my tapestry needle. But I would take and thread through each stitch so I could do a gathering stitch. Now before I thread off the stitches, I needed to take my ribbon comb off, all the weights off of it, because as I'm doing 1 stitch at a time, taking off the needles, that would eventually get heavy and stretch out some of your yarn, although it should pull itself right back in. I forgot to mention that before I take the ribbon comb off and the weights, I do bring the needles out to holding position and make sure the work's behind the open latches. That way you're not going to lose them. So now, the way I like sewing up things is, and as you see, I didn't tighten this yet, but I go back and forth. I do what's called a run-in stitch. And when you look at it, it actually comes out the same as the mattress stitch. But if you're comfortable with having the 2 pieces together, going down through a couple of ladders on that side, down a couple of ladders on that side, you know, it's really up to you. But now I'm beyond the part of just the knitter stitches. So I'm going to pull this up tight. You don't want to pull it too tight because sometimes these yarns will break. And actually I should have had more stitches or less rows for this hat, so this is going to end up being more of a stocking cap. So I'll probably put a tassel on this one. So I just continue sewing down. Now I like taking the 2 stitches on the end, the 2 pieces of yarn that make the V-stitch. If you want to take 1, you could do that as well. If you want to do the baseball stitch so that it's butted with each other and hard to see the seam, you could do that as well too. It's really up to you. Just because a pattern is written a certain way doesn't mean you have to work it that way. You can make your little changes. So let me finish this up and then get a picture of it when it's done. Of course, it's going to have a brim. It's going to be folded up. But as you see, that's going to be one tall hat. Here's the finished hat. Of course, if you have it for a baby, you could just flip that top down. But I want to show you, it does stretch out quite a bit. Now here it is fully stretched out. I don't think I'd put it on a child that tight. Maybe around this would be good because I can feel the rib pulling itself in still. But anyways, I hope you get to make some of these hats, whether it's for gifts or if you're going to donate to a worthy cause. And if you are going to donate yourself. Don't give it to somebody else for them to go and sell it and take the credit for the work you did.